What I would say is that the AI is not capable of being responsible for its own actions. It's always the people behind it. Ultimately, what artificial intelligence does is humans delegate a certain amount of power to it, and then based on that delegation of power, the AI does that automatically. It's supposed to automatically solve a certain set of problems that humans have delegated to the AI to solve. If the AI does that well, then nobody's going to worry about it. We're going to say, okay, this is working perfectly fine. And so we have all sorts of factories with robots in them. We have all sorts of people using machine learning for data analysis and those sorts of things. And as long as it works well and it's benefiting people, it's not a big concern. But when it starts going wrong, then we need to step back and say, okay, the automation that we're using here has failed, or it's making some sort of mistake. Is there a way that we can adjust the way it's making that? Or do we need to actually pull back all of that delegation and no longer have AI have this power? And there's been a lot of interesting philosophy, actually, that's been done on this. So, for example, there's a philosopher named Shannon Valor. She's at the University of Edinburgh. She used to be at Santa Clara University, where I worked, pretty closely with her on several projects. And she has talked about this idea of what are the skills, because we delegate skills ultimately to artificial intelligence. What are the skills that we need to make sure we keep? And among those skills are, we need to understand what we're actually doing. We need to have understanding. We need to have wisdom for the application of that understanding. We need to maintain our ability to make ethical choices. And we probably need to actually get better at making ethical choices. And ultimately, we need to have an understanding of politics and how politics works as a good end. How do we cooperate together in order to make a good society that people actually want to live in? Those are a set of skills that we cannot delegate and automate, because if we lose those skills, then guess what? We don't have the skills anymore. we de-skill ourselves, to use another word that Shannon Valor has used a lot and that I have adopted from her terminology. If we lose those skills, if we de-skill ourselves, then we're going to be in big trouble. We're not going to be able to make ethical decisions as well as we used to. We're not going to be able to cooperate with each other politically as well as we used to. And we're not going to be able to understand things. We're not going to be able to use that understanding towards good ends. And of course, if you look at society these days, you might say to yourself, I think this is already happening. And it's not necessarily because we've delegated it to automation, although it is to a certain extent through social media, because we've allowed social media to polarize us and pull us off in these little echo chambers so that we can't talk to each other anymore. And I like the phrase that you just used, this one screen, two movies. That's because we're coming from very different interpretive frameworks now, where we're understanding reality in very different ways. And so we really need to ask ourselves, okay, we've delegated a power to AI. Maybe we should not have done that. What if we just went to the old style of Facebook algorithm? Facebook, back in the day, more than 10 years ago, Facebook was just, this is what your friend said in chronological order over the last, time since you looked at it. And Facebook decided to instead use AI for that, and it ended up screwing everybody up. Maybe it's time to go back to the way before this experiment was run, because you can think of this as being a big technological experiment upon society at the scale of millions and millions of people who are being affected by it. More than millions, hundreds of millions, billions of people ultimately. And when we see these problems appear, we need to think about how do we fix them. And the fact that we aren't actually able to fix them because our government is not operating properly shows that we've also lost some sort of political skills, or other sorts of problems have happened. And this is one of the reasons why I do ethics. I'll just say it right now. I think we need to be better at ethics now than we've ever been at the past, because we have so much more power and so much more responsibility to get things right. That's really why I do what I do, as I think we need to get better at ethics. We need to figure out how to make good decisions, and we really need to scale this all the way up, through society, from the top to the bottom, from the students who are just entering grade school all the way up to the politicians who are making these big decisions. We need to figure out what is the good that we're aiming for, and how do we actually cooperate to make that happen.